how to make America 2.0 a more equitable society. This column, let's start with specifically what America 2.0 is referring to, especially since we have heard a number of folks, including the likes of Mark Cuban, refer to this in recent days.
Yeah, actually, I interviewed him and we talked about it, and that's where I got the idea from. He was talking about what is it, and I think everyone's conception of what it is different. And I think his whole point, and many others, I think Ray Dalio on your program called it the new future. There's all kinds of ways, a pivot, whatever you want to do. But the idea is, what is America 2.0? And believe me, we're beyond 2.0 for a long time now, but it's a good it's a good metaphor. But what is it? For Mark, it's more focus on AI, automation, robotics, things like that. Maybe less focus on college. I think he talked about that a little bit. For me, it's more focused on workers' rights. It's more focused on the idea around privacy. It's focused around all kinds of things. So I wanted to get a discussion going on what that means and what tech could do to facilitate that going forward.
Yeah, and I think the worker piece of it is really key, and I think it's something we're going to be talking about a little bit later in the show as well, which is this idea of the definition of an essential worker and the fact that you do have a lot of these gig economy workers, for example, folks that are on the front lines in responding to this pandemic and helping others in society right now who maybe would have never expected to be in that position and haven't necessarily been compensated, at least until now, for such a responsibility.
They're still not compensated, and they aren't safe. I mean, look at these issues around Amazon and this piece in the Wall Street Journal today or yesterday. This concept of what is an essential worker. Before the pandemic, they weren't considered essential. And actually, Nicole Hannah-Jones, in another interview I did, she works for the New York Times covering income inequality and other issues. She called them sacrificial workers now because they aren't getting enough health protections. They certainly aren't paid enough for the work they're doing, the dangerous work they're doing. And so the question is, what is an essential worker? And maybe we should pay them more. And that leads right to education. Like this no matter who you are on the spectrum, I don't think anybody likes Zoom classes for their kids. It's not working out. And so what does an online education work to reach a lot of people? And then what about the kids that don't have computers, that don't have internet access, that are going to be losing a half a year of school, essentially? And they're already on the edge to start with. And so what does this do? And so we have to think harder about, distance education and things like that.
Yeah, Kara, good morning. It's John. And I've been thinking a lot about this, too. Hey, and I've got concerns because it looks to me like state and local governments are probably going to get slammed coming out of this. So public education budgets are going to get slammed. During this, we've already seen inequality opening up among kids who've got multiple laptops at home and the ability to do these online classes without waiting in line behind siblings, and the ones who don't. We know that artificial intelligence is probably going to hollow out the middle class, the middle income. Those that we're terming essential workers now will still be essential, but their wages will stay low and there'll be even less mobility. So I would argue that to get America 2.0, we've got to first have democracy 2.0, where more people are voting, more people are informed, and this class of workers has a voice and is active, right? Don't we?
Absolutely. I think that the question is, what is America 2.0 to you? And what was really interesting is everybody had a different thing. Like some people thought better voter registration, better online voting, voting by mail. What does it represent? This might be a good reset for everybody to think about the things. Should unions be stronger? Like they, in France, they're suing, they stopped the work of Amazon because of worker safety and pay. And they won in court there. And so the question is, what is America 2.0 to you? And I think absolutely worker protections, healthcare for all. I mean, I'm not a healthcare for all proponent, but some way that everybody gets good healthcare and they're not put in positions of jobs where they're really, we can fix very easily. And that's the issue. And so I think a lot of these corporations, including the tech companies, have to be on alert that they're responsible for worker safety at the same time. And so, but other people may push back and say, we don't need these protections. We need to grow America. And so it's a good debate to have. It's what kind of society do we have emerging from this? And does it give us an opportunity to think really hard about where we spend our money and where we don't spend our money?
For years, we've had you on. We've talked about concerns about big tech in general, the tech lash, the abuses of privacy and so forth. What happens to that concern when the government's going to come around and realize you need those players for election security, for contact tracing, for big data and biopharma? I mean, how do you have both?
Well, it's interesting because this week Elizabeth Warren was talking about, because of this testimony of Amazon, around certain things. So I think the question is, we don't go away from our basic values, which was that these big tech companies are really big. And I don't think we should back away from that question. I mean, they did the settlement, the FTC settlement was approved, and the judge even said this is not adequate. Of course, he didn't do anything about it. He certainly could have doubled or tripled the fine. This is the privacy settlement that they did with the FTC over the consent decree. And so the question is, do we continue to have the basic values of we need to be private, or do we just turn everything over and allow these companies to be big? Do we allow them to, David Cicilline in the House has a bill to not let any big mergers go forward during the pandemic era, or wherever that time frame is. But maybe we should think about that in general. And so I don't know. I think probably people will back off and these companies will get the pass that I talked about recently with you. But maybe we shouldn't. Maybe that's the whole question is, what does America 2.0 look like? What should it be? Should it be ruled by giant corporations that are going to sort of get gianter as we go along? That's not a word, but there you go.
Yeah. And of course, we're going to get,
by the way, Carl,
the latest round of.
I'm wearing a suit, Carl, just for you, just so you know.
You dressed up today. That's just for me.
Yeah, but I'm not wearing pants, so that there we have it. So.